Hi, everyone. Thanks once again for joining us for our veterans and their stories. My name is Christine Shirley, and I'm very happy to have as our featured guest for today, Doug Mount. Doug, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. I want to start off by talking about your family history because you have a huge family history that dates way back.
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about that, starting with the Revolutionary War.
Yes, I had it would be my great grandfather, actually Ebenezer Mount. He fought with the New Jersey Volunteer Unit. He's served through the war. He survived with no injuries, thank God. And he lived in the Monroe area, and he is buried actually in the Cranberry Cemetery behind the Presbyterian Church.
Oh, wow, nice. And you could also find out for our viewers as well, if they are interested, any more history on any relative that might be in the Revolutionary War, go to the David Library. And David Library is right at Washington's Crossing, so you might be able to get more information. And now you had another relative, you told me, in the Civil War.
Yes, actually I had two relatives. I had one was my great uncle.
And is this him?
That's the picture portrait of him. He was at the 14th New Jersey, Company H out of Cranberry was where the unit was originally formed out of. They did their basic training in Freehold Township, right on the old Monmouth battlegrounds.
Oh, wow.
He served in various campaigns, including the Battle of Opelika.
Where was that?
That's actually in Virginia. They served mostly around the Virginia, Maryland area. He was in Fredericks near I'm sorry, I'm sort of
It's okay.
making out. I'm sorry, I'm just making it out on this one.
That's all right.
But he served with the regiment served in 62 when he started, served until 1864 when he was wounded in Cold Harbor, Virginia.
Wow.
He did catch a mini ball in the lower jaw, lost his lower jaw, and lived until 1893. I have affidavits, all of his medical records, everything that he was on. Everything had to be basically blended, purified, or pureed, and then he was on what was called a mixture, a laudanum, which was a mixture of alcohol and cocaine.
Oh, wow.
And they referred to that as the soldier's disease because they really didn't know how much to take, so it sort of affected him. And then I also had my great uncle, which was William Mount. He served with the 28th New Jersey, which was a 9-month regiment. He served at the Battle of Marye's Heights in Fredericks, Maryland in December of 62. He survived the war as well. They're both buried, my grandfather's buried in Cranberry at the same church as Ebenezer, and David is buried in a small cemetery over near what's called Union Valley Cemetery in Monroe Township.
That's wonderful that you have all this history that goes way back.
Yes.
And you also told me about your another relative who was in World War I.
Yes, my grandfather on my mother's side, he was a military police with the 33rd Division. He was actually served time at the end of the war. He was at the Remagen Bridge. A lot of people don't realize that they occupied the bridge both during the First and Second World War. He was there during the First World War.
And where was the bridge?
It was in between Germany and France. You'll see the movie about the taking the bridge during the Second World War. That's basically the bridge that he was occupying and guarding during the First World War at the end.
And then there was your dad.
Yeah. My father, Horatio, or he was always referred to as Ray, he was with the U.S. Navy during the Second World War.
You have a picture of him?
I have a picture of him.
Okay.
If you could. He was with the he joined the Navy. He served on various landing craft. He served the LST 377, which you have a picture,
Picture
you
of
know
this.
of.
And we found some history on this ship.
Yeah, she found a little history. When he was on it, it served in North Africa, Sicily, Italy campaign, and southern France is when he was on it. You also found out that it was also on Normandy, and I did not know that.
Yeah, the invasion of Normandy, and it earned 4 battle stars for World War II.
World War II, right. Afterwards, he was restationed back on the same LST, where he went to the Pacific. He was actually for the invasion of Japan. Luckily enough, it didn't happen because who knows if I'd have been here after that. But he was actually in here. He was one of the first ships groups going into Hiroshima.
And we have some pictures
With some
of that.
pictures of that.
Here you go, Doug.
All right, that's the ship going in to the bay. It's very hard to see.
This one.
Right here. This one right here is of him in Hiroshima. That's on some of the debris. And the other pictures is the same with one of his chief petty officers from the ship.
And you have a couple other pictures here.
There's a
of
few
your
other
dad.
pictures, yes.
Sure. Here you go.
This is another picture of him in his uniform. I don't know the exact date on this one, but I think it was toward the beginning. This picture here is him, an everyday picture. He was a baker with the Navy, so he did basically baking, cooking, and everything else under the sun that he did, as well as operating a quad 40 millimeter anti-aircraft gun on board the destroyers. He did catch, while he was on, he did catch some fragment in his hand, right between his thumb and his forefinger. And to the day, I never knew it. The reason why is he had a little black dot there, which originally was an anchor to cover the scar,
Oh, wow.
because he didn't want his mother to know about it.
Oh, no. And you had a couple other pictures
Okay.
here, too.
These pictures are also in Japan, with some of a couple Japanese with them. And this one here is my father and my aunt. They're from Jamesburg, is where they lived. And
This one here.
this is a group shot of him and some of the guys from his ship. I'm not exactly sure. He never told me where these were exactly taken. And then this is my father in Jamesburg at the memorial, right in the center of town.
Okay, and we had one other interesting picture here, a souvenir
Yeah,
from the zombie village.
yeah. I was always wondering about that one myself. But when he was in California, him and a bunch of his guys went out and went to the lounge and got a picture taken. As you can see, this is my father right on the end here with a few of his guys. And I'm going to have to say the gentleman's fiance or girlfriend, at least on the one side.
Okay. And this was about your dad, yeah. Now, the ship that he was on, we read that it was put up for scrap in the Bethlehem Steel Company.
Yes. Yeah, it was, which was a shame because it survived both the European campaign and the Pacific campaign.
And then your father had received medals for that,
Yes, yeah, he got the National Defense, European campaign, Asian campaign, and one other one, but I can't remember what it was off the top of my head.
Now, what I'd like to find out also is your father has a strong connection to South River.
Yes, my father was district commander for the 8th VFW district, which was Middlesex County. So when that was in 1975, and we used to do a lot of functions. It was the Loyalty Day parades and such like that, picnics. We used to have right down here at the VFW down the road.
Okay, right on Reed Street.
Right on Reed Street,
yeah.
yes. So that was the connection
And he had a lot
for
of
that. Yeah.
pictures you told me that they had taken?
They had
of it?
taken some pictures, but I haven't been able to find any of them that I have. I'm trying to see if people have them from other places, but none from there, I'm afraid to say.
Okay.
Because going back that time, I was only 16 myself at that time, so it was even before I was in the Coast Guard.
So he spent a lot of time here too.
Yes.
Which was nice.
Right.
So let's talk about you. Let's find out the branch of the service that you were in.
I was in the United States Coast Guard. I served from 1979 to 1999. I reached the rank of first class petty officer. I was what they call a damage controlman. I was a carpenter, welder, pipe fitter, firefighter, basically a jack of all trades. I did what the Navy had 15 guys to do. So I did all their jobs.
And we have a picture of you in the service, right?
Yes.
Let's see which
I
one
did
is
have a
it.
picture of me in the service. Well, don't I do that? But I'm sorry, I do not have myself in the picture in the service.
Okay, well, we have some other ones
I got
here
some other ones,
too.
yeah.
That's okay, that's fine. So when you went to basic training, tell us a little bit about that.
I did basic training in Cape May. It was 8 weeks. I was in from October 22nd until December 14th. So technically 40 years ago, right now, I'd still be sitting in Cape May.
Okay.
Very cold this time of the year.
And this is the picture that you
This
have.
is the
it.
picture of my company.
And which one is you in here, Doug?
I am all the way right there. Barely see me. I'm in the back row.
Okay,
We
great.
were, as you can see, this is the company. We had a mixed company. We were what we refer to as an honor company. What they do is every week they did a competition. You do physical items, you do educational, military requirements, stuff that you needed to know. And they would test you on that. And then they would grade each company that is participating. You weren't supposed to be participating until your 4th week. But our company commander, he turned around, put us on our 3rd week there. But they turned around, the instructors that were doing all the testing, turned around and told us after the fact, if we were allowed to be in it, we'd have won it that week, even though it was only our 3rd week.
Oh, nice, very
Right?
nice.
And the gentleman in the center, as you can see in the full dress, that's actually our company commander. That's Chief Quartermaster Crocker. We refer to as Crocker's crew.
So do you have any memorable moments that you remember in the basic training?
Oh, quite a few. We actually, there's a thing that's called for punishment, but it's usually not you getting punished. It's what's called a white tornado. It's when they come in and you pick a couple guys out of your squad bay, and direct you over to another squad bay, and they turn around and give you the instructions that once they yell white tornado, you have to destroy everything in the room, make sure it's nothing above 18 inches above the floor, which means disassembling everything and get it on the floor. That was fun.
Why did they do that?
Punishment for the other company. They messed up big time.
Oh,
That was one. And another memorable one was actually one day we did something wrong. Nobody remembers what it was, but our company commanders marched us right down the main drag, heading toward the beach. As soon as the first guy got water up to his neck, he yelled, "Halt!" about face, and then started screaming at us for going swimming. Now, you got to imagine this is the beginning of December.
oh no.
You're in the uniforms we had when we were going through basic training was basically a short sleeve shirt, Dickies, like your work clothes, and a light coat. Now we had to march back from the beach to our barracks drenched from head to toe. It was cold.
Wow, wow. Oh my gosh. So then after basic training, where did you go?
After basic training, I went to Damage Control A School, which was what my basic job was. That was on Governor's Island, New York. That was from December 27th is when I reported, and until April 4th.
Okay, and what was that like?
more, basically it's just going over all the basic stuff that you'd have to be doing: carpentry, pipe fitting, welding, boat repair, firefighting, and such like that.
They trained you.
Yes, and they trained you, yeah.
Okay.
Luckily enough, I knew some of it. Some I didn't know, but I learned. So everybody tried to help each other as they went.
They put you through training for search and rescue at all?
Not there. I didn't. That was on after I got onto my first ship. That was part of my secondary duties.
And
On
where
that.
are you in this picture?
Of course, me in the back again. I'm right there.
Okay.
I like the back row. Yeah. And this was on Governor's Island,
That was
which
Governor's Island.
is now decommissioned. It's no longer a Coast Guard base. It's now a park in the city.
So it's a national landmark.
Yeah.
A national
Yeah,
historic
the
landmark.
building that's here is still there. It's a historical building, so they can't do tear it down or anything.
Did you ever go back and visit it?
I have been back a few times. Probably the last time was probably about 15 years ago, is when I was there doing some going to be marching in the St. Patrick's Day parade with my reenacting unit.
Did it still look the same?
Oh yeah, at that time it did. Yeah, because it was still occupied by the Coast Guard.
So it brought out memories.
Oh yeah.
A lot of memories
Yeah.
for you. That's so nice. So then after you left there, where did you go?
After there, I went to Gulfport, Mississippi. I was on the cutter Acushnet. It was a old Navy seagoing tug. Put a picture. This one actually was built in 1944 and saw service during the Pacific. She actually has a battle star
During
on her
World War II?
during World War II. She served with the Navy until around 52, I think it was, and then the Coast Guard took it over and recommissioned her as the Acushnet. She was, like I say, this was out of Gulfport, Mississippi.
How long did you serve on that?
On there 2 years, 2 months, and 4 days.
You know
But,
exactly.
but nobody was counting. Yeah, it was actually a good ship. She rode nice. She rode beautifully riding out hurricanes. I rode out a few of them.
What was that like?
Oh, it was fun.
You enjoyed that?
Oh,
You
yeah.
actually did?
Yeah. So it
And
was-
where did you go when you went?
on this one, we were at all the Caribbean, Honduras, Cuba, Mexico, the Bahamas. We came up the East Coast up into Virginia for doing some training. Down into Honduras area, Mexico. Mostly around the Caribbean for the most part.
They had you all
Right.
over.
Yeah.
All over. And was any memorable experiences on that ship?
Yeah, back in, it was mid-'80s, we had a couple things. First one was part of the Marianas boat lift, which was when the Cubans were leaving Cuba because the Castro turned around and told them to get out. That was part of it, which was we were helping them, assisting them, coming over, because these people were coming over in boats that were were not seaworthy. They were even coming over in inner tubes. That's how
Oh,
desperate
my.
these people were.
Wow,
And
wow.
this one here, see, is actually a shrimp boat loaded with people from top to bottom, loaded. I mean, I think there was
How many people were
I
on
think
it?
there was about 130 people on this one.
And what's the size of the vessel?
Probably about 90 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we actually picked up one small boat, which was only about a 24-foot little motorboat. We counted 40 people on that. Yeah. And this time is when they were coming in, we got to talk to the people when we had them on our ship. And from what they were saying, I'm glad they got out. These people were just totally depressed. We were given, or one of our shipmates was actually a minister, and he brought a bunch of Bibles from his church, and he was giving them out to the ladies, and they were crying because they never had a Bible because Castro wouldn't allow them.
So what did you do with the people when?
These people we brought into Key West, and then we would turn them over to customs, and then they would process them, see how if they're eligible for asylum or if they have to be deported or whatever.
Okay.
And then another one would be,
This is a different situation?
this is a different situation. This is another shrimp boat. This one is called the Lady Claire. This was off the North Carolina coast, up around Wilmington area.
Wow.
And when we passed her, we sort of noticed something a little weird about it. There's a shrimp boat with no shrimp nets. Well, when we boarded her, we asked the captain what the story was, and he said it was fertilizer heading to Canada. Well,
Okay.
we found out a little difference. 60 tons of marijuana.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
So we brought it into, after we finally were able to get the permission to seize her from the Honduran government, we brought her back into North Carolina to Wilmington, and we seized her and and then DEA came in and started unloading it. And this is some of the bales that were there.
And that's a picture of
And
you,
that's a picture
right?
of me, yes. Yeah.
So those are some very interesting situations that you were involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness. Okay. So then after that, where did you go?
After that, I went to Air Station Brooklyn in Old Floyd Bennett Field. I was there from, oh God, I got them written down. That's the worst thing.
Then in the back here?
Yeah.
There we go.
But this was taken in the summer of '83. This is the crew of the air station in front of the hangar. These are two, what they call flying lifeboats, the helicopters. These ones actually were able to land in the water.
So they had
And
flotation?
Yeah, they're
devices
built-in
on them?
flotation devices on them.
Okay.
And so they can float in the water, which was a good thing. The newer choppers they have now, they can't get it, they can't land in the water. And of course, I'm in the background again, over
Okay.
here.
And how long were you stationed there?
This time I was there for 3 years at this time in the 80s, early 80s.
And did you have any rescue missions there at all?
I was not on the helicopters themselves. I was building maintenance and ground maintenance. So that was mostly what my duties was, and I was also the base fire marshal. So I took care of all the fire equipment on the base, as well as the crash truck we had on board. And I was also involved with the training of the crew for basic firefighting and crash firefighting.
And you have any particular situations that happened at that time?
Nah, pretty much everything was pretty good there. The one thing we did I liked when I was there, we did have a German Shepherd there, which was his name was Hummer. Don't ask me where I came up with that number, but that's what they called him. They called him Hummer, and he was a great watchdog because he'd go around at nighttime with the watch standard to go around the base, and what we always liked to do is, for some reason, he hated the color orange, and all of our officers that were flyers, they wore orange jumpsuits, flight suits. So as soon as we seen one of them, we'd yell, "Look, Hum, point!" And the dog would chase the officers around the base.
Oh, no.
So that was our fun part.
Now, is this part of your uniform here?
Yes, this is the basic hat
Take
for
a
the
look
time.
at it.
It's still worn today. This is the enlisted man's hat, is because it has just a straight shield on top. If it was an officer's hat, it would have an eagle with an anchor underneath it.
And is that the uniform next to
Yes,
you?
my uniform would be right here. This is set up as the Class A uniform or parade uniform for doing ceremonies.
Okay.
It would consist of all my ribbons and medals that I have, as well as, you can see, my stripes. Which
And now the
indicates that I'm
stripes
first.
mean what?
Each one of this is how high you go up in rank. When you come in, you start as a seaman recruit. That's the lowest. That's basic training. When you come out of there, you become a seaman apprentice or a fireman apprentice. That's second highest. Then you become a seaman or a fireman, that's what they refer to as a non-rate. You don't specifically have a job. After that, you become a petty officer, you get a specific job. That's why you go to A school. When you come out of that, you have what's called your designator, which in my case is the crossed hammer and axe. That indicates that I'm a petty officer, damage controlman. Above that would be an eagle, or we call it a crow. And then below would be your hash marks. Now, the next rank would be third class petty officer. That would be 1 chevron. Second class would have 2 chevrons. First class would have 3 chevrons like I have. After that would be chief petty officer. The stripes would turn to gold, and then there would be what was called a rocker. It's just a device that would connect the top hash marks together on an arch. And then after that, higher you go, you get a star above your eagle for senior chief, master chief, and such like that. There's only, and the highest enlisted men, which is only one in the entire Coast Guard, is the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard. And there's only one of them, and he's in Washington. And no offense, would not want his job.
Now, tell us about your medals and your bars.
Okay. Let me do this so I can cheat a little bit. All right, if the medals I have on the one side, all right, these are, like I say, these are full-size medals. We start over here is the Rifle Expert. This one is my Outstanding Volunteer Service Award. I got this because I am a volunteer fireman in my town of Old Bridge. Coming in next is Humanitarian Service Award. I received 2 of them. That's why there's a star there. The next is the National Defense Medal. And then over here is my Good Conduct Medal. I have 6 awards of that, and there's a gold star in the center of that one. Above that is what they call a Cutterman's pin. When you're on board a ship, you have certain qualifications you do. Once you fill the qualifications out, you receive a Cutterman's pin. After 3 years of sea time, you keep it permanently on your uniform. I've got over 5 years, so I can have mine permanently. Now, on the other side is just my ribbons that don't have coordinated medals for it. This is my Pistol Marksman. Over here is my, let me get my right page, I'm sorry. Like I say, I don't remember all of them either, the way they were ordered. All right, this is Restricted Duty Ribbon. That's because I was in Alaska for 2 years. It's got a bronze star in the center. Over here is my Coast Guard Sea Service ribbon with a brown star. Over here is my let's see, where am I at? Special Operations Service ribbon, right there with a gold star. Okay, then you come up, up to here. Over here is the Bicentennial Unit Commendation, which was given out for the Coast Guard's 200th anniversary in 1990. This is, sorry, I've lost myself. Humanitarian Service. No, that's the medal. Unit Bicentennial. Oh, here we are. Meritorious Team Commendation. That's given to a unit that has some specific thing that they did that helped the unit out. And then this one here is the Meritorious Unit Commendation. Basically the same thing. That has gold stars and an O device. The O device is like an operations, so it's the whole unit basically. Over here is the where was that? Oh, right there. This is the Coast Guard Unit Commendation. Pretty much is the same thing. It's just in different steps of how it's initiated. Then this one here with the metal bar around it is the Coast Guard's Gold Medal of Outstanding Achievement. That one is an individual medal that's given out for a specific things that you do over the time. And then the last one is the Commandant's Letter of Commendation. That's something that the Commandant actually, they wrote up, and the Commandant authorizes me to wear that from him. So
That's
it's a
wonderful.
personal award.
All those medals and bars. Oh, it's just wonderful.
And then as you see down over here on the sleeve, I got 5 hash marks. Each hash mark is 4 years, which indicates it's for 20 years. And it's the same thing as if you were a chief. These would be in gold instead of in red.
Very, very, very impressive. Very impressive. So let's go back a little bit more. Now, you also mentioned to me that you were stationed in Alaska.
Yes.
And I'd like to talk about that.
Okay.
How long were you
well,
there?
before I got to Alaska, I was after Brooklyn. We left off at Brooklyn. Well, after Brooklyn, I went down to Galveston, Texas. I was on what they refer another cutter ship. In the Coast Guard, we refer to ships anything over 95 foot as a cutter. I was on what was referred to as medium Dorset, which was a 210, which was the cutter Valiant, which is right in here. She was at that time was one of our newer ships. She was only built 1960s.
Okay.
So I served basically down around the same areas, the Caribbean, Honduras, Nicaragua, all them areas. So basically same thing. It was all law enforcement, search and rescue, and various items like that.
Any interesting experiences on that ship?
Only one that I can really remember is the only time I ever got nervous of pulling into a port was we pulled into Port of Prince Hades. And this was back around 87 is when all the political turmoil was still going on there. Well, the Haitians were trying to leave the country, so we were picking them up. And we had to bring a bunch of them back. Well, Port-au-Prince, the pier is about a mile out from the city. When you're out that far and all you're hearing is yelling over a loudspeaker and then machine gun fire,
Oh.
it was the one time I was glad I'd never left the ship.
I can understand that. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, and then also we used to run a lot on this ship. We ran a lot with the Bahamian Defense Forces, which is basically their type of military, with them. So we were running the back sides of the islands in what they referred to as a rigid hull inflatable, which was only about 24 foot long, doing about 65 miles an hour. So I can honestly say there's several hundred islands in the Bahamian chain. I've seen every one at 65.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Okay. Okay. Then from there I went back. From there I then went back to Brooklyn.
Okay.
So I was basically at the air station again doing the same thing. Okay. Then after that, I went to Attu.
So tell us a little bit about it. I mean, that's stationed in Alaska. That must have been very interesting.
Yeah. What I was at was on what they call a Loran Sea Station. It's a navigational system that actually sends out a pulse. You usually have 3 stations in different locations, and what it would do is it would send a pulse out across, and it would, when they cross, it would be picked up by a receiver on, say, a ship, and it would tell them where they're at on the sea, which was the precursor to the Loran systems that they use today. The units are no longer viable, so they decommissioned all the units.
Okay.
Attu was a beautiful island. It was out, like I say, it was out on the end of the Aleutians. We had a little saying out there. You don't have to worry about seeing the end of the world there. You're there.
Were there a lot of other members with you, or
There was only 20 of us on the whole island.
that's it?
That is it.
How large was the island?
The island was about 12 miles wide by about 24 miles long.
So that was it.
That was it. The island was inhabited prior to World War II by the the Aleuts, which was a native Alaskan tribe out there, and there was also an American school teacher and her husband on the island. They were the only non-natives there. In 1942, the Japanese, as part of their Midway campaign, invaded the island, captured them, and then transported all the people off the island. And so the natives were no longer there. The island was occupied until 42, when the American forces came in and retook it. When the Americans invaded, there was a garrison of 3,700 Japanese on it, and there was less than 14 Japanese that survived the war, the campaign. They were either killed in combat or they actually physically committed suicide, rather than being captured.
So we have some pictures here.
I have some pictures. Yes, I do. Okay. First one I have. Actually, this is the crew on it. That's all of us right there.
That's everybody.
That's everybody, all 20 of us.
And you have a little doggy too.
Yep,
In there.
that was our mascot. His name was Coco.
Coco.
He was actually the only permanent resident on the base. He was a good dog. He loved wandering around. He loved the snow. The only thing is, never get him blocked into the snow sheds that we had, because he would go nuts. Because he got locked in there. He got buried in a doghouse in a snowstorm once, and he don't like to get closed in. All right. There's
Coco.
Coco again. A little closer shot. Okay. Now, the only way on and off the island was either by boat or by plane. While I was there was only one boat that ever showed up, and it was a Russian boat that was reenacting when they discovered Alaska.
Oh, wow.
For their 300th anniversary, I think it was. This picture right here is the Attu International Airport. That's since we were only allowed to come in by plane, that was our airport. It was basically just a little shed that consisted of our firefighting equipment and a place to get warmed up while you're waiting for the plane to come in. And I'm the one on the right in the light coat. And the guy next to me is actually my relief.
Wow.
This was taken when I was leaving. Okay.
Now, what planes would fly through?
These are what came in. It was C-130s, the Coast Guard. And I don't know how you're going to be able to see it, if it's going to come out good with the snow in the back. But here's one of them coming in. And as you can see, the mountain in the background, that's actually the highest point on the island. That's what they call that Mount Terrible.
That's actually its name.
That's its name,
That's
Mount
its
Terrible.
name.
Mm-hmm.
And how much time did you spend in Alaska?
I did 2 tours on Attu a year each time.
And that was just with the same amount of people?
Yes,
That's it?
just pretty much all different crew though. I think we had, the second time I was there, I had 2 guys that were referred to as retreads. They came back like I did. We were retreads. And then, as you can see, here's another picture of how much snow we got. We actually had a light year that year. We only had 110 inches of snow.
During what course of time, would you say?
Usually October, November, December, January is when you usually got the most. Temperature-wise, normally summer would be like around here springtime.
Okay.
So you would leave, you'd have to bring at least a coat with you. But otherwise, weather was gorgeous. What was nice about it too is if you liked hiking, you could go out until 2 o'clock in the morning, because the sun didn't go down until 2 in the morning. And it came back up at 4. So it only had like 2 to 3.5 hours of darkness. Also the reverse in the wintertime.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. It didn't get totally that way. Now, another picture which I always loved that I did take is this one here of a sunrise. This is over an area called Alexei Point. After when the Navy, Army, and Air Force occupied the island afterwards, they occupied this until the early 70s. All the way out at the point was an airfield for the Air Force. So they had their own area, which was only accessible by one road going in and out to the airport, to their field. That's that one. Now,
And that was a picture you were telling me about. The polar bears.
this one here is our Polar Bear Club. As we called it as our April Fool's Polar Bear Club for two reasons. Number one, it was April, and we were a bunch of fools for going in the water. This was, as I say, actually almost half the crew that was there. It was actually, the water was like around 32 degrees. When you got out of the water to put your shoes on, you actually sat in a snowbank because it was warmer.
Oh,
And so that was always the fun part.
wow.
Bring this one up as what you call it. Now, as you're saying, some of the interesting stuff we used to do out. Like I say, we did the polar bear plunge, and every so often we'd get the veterans that served out there during the war and such like that. So when they came in, I always volunteered to take them wherever they wanted to go. So one day we had 5 of them come in, and one gentleman turned around and said exactly where he wanted to go on the island, which is what we refer to as Radar Ridge, because it used to be old radar station units. So drove them up to where I can go as far as I was able to with the vehicle. We all got out of the vehicle. We're all walking around. I'm talking to a couple of the veterans. Then all of a sudden I start looking around, and one of them's missing. And I'm starting to panic because this guy's in his 70s. And then all of a sudden, he pops up out of a hole and yells, "It's dry." And we're scratching our head. It's his foxhole from the Second World War.
Oh.
And when we looked all the way around the area, all the other holes were filled with water except his. How he did it, we do no idea how he did it, but his was still dry after 50 years.
And that was an original foxhole that he was in?
That was the one he was in.
That was the one.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I always loved, because it was a lot of history on the island that you
Right.
can find.
So did you all have different jobs, responsibilities?
Yes. Each one had a specific job of what they were. Like I said, I was a damage controlman, so I was basically in charge of maintenance of all the buildings, furniture, and all that other items. I was the fire marshal basically for the base, because I basically was the only properly more trained than anybody else on the island to be firefighter, as well as on a fire team.
Were there a lot of buildings on the island?
No. Basically, the main buildings we worried about was the main station that we were in, the building down at the airport, a transmitter building, where the antenna was, and then a couple smaller outer buildings, which was a warehouse and stuff like that. But that was really it. All the rest of the buildings that were on the island at one time were either demolished or they collapsed and fell in. Then you had your electricians, you had your mechanics, which took care of the generators. Your electronic guys, they took care of the radios and the transmitters. You had your cooks, your storekeeper, your corpsman. We had one corpsman actually served as a yeoman, so he, as well as a corpsman, he did the paperwork. And then you had a couple non-rates that did all the basic grunt work, per se. Except the main thing was when the aircraft came in, that was our supply. We only got it every 2 weeks. That was an all-hand evolution.
So that's the only time you ever saw a plane come in, every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks. The only other time we would see a plane would be during the bird migration. They would charter, a company would charter a plane, and they would be bringing civilians to go bird watching.
Really?
Because on the island there was so many different birds that you wouldn't see on the main island, on the mainland, from Europe or from Asia. They would fly in, spend 2 weeks, and they would live in one of our old buildings that we refer to as the caverns, because it was actually stalactites hanging from the ceilings.
Oh, wow.
But it was the best time to get sick on the island because we had cardiologists, neurologists, all professional people.
And that's probably one of the only times you saw people.
Yeah, basically, yes, that's it.
So how was that a feeling of isolation with only so many people there? Did that bother you?
No, it never really bothered me because everybody on the base was so tight knitted. We always had parties of some sort, picnics during the holidays, like the 4th of July, Memorial Day. We always had picnics. We had Christmas parties. We had just general parties to have parties.
Do you still stay in touch with the same people?
No, I haven't. No, I
No?
do not. I haven't seen any of the guys from the island. No, which I'm sorry I have to say I haven't.
But when you were out there, you've seen a lot of wildlife. Bears?
No bears. There's only foxes and basically foxes on the island. That's really it. There was the bear where we were at. There was so far out, the bears didn't get there.
Oh, yeah.
And the foxes were not native originally to the island. The Russians brought them in to start raising them for the fur trade.
Oh, okay. I see. Wow. Very interesting. Now, this other picture you have here, is this from being out in
Oh no,
Alaska?
this was actually from boot camp.
Oh, okay. This
Yeah,
is a
we
boot
missed
camp.
that one. This was actually taken 40 years ago, roughly around this week, is when I was at boot camp. This was when we did our weekend liberty. These are two of my friends that I hung out with that day. The young lady on the one side, if you can see her, she's actually I refer to her as my good luck charm. And so we spent the day together down at the American Legion down there, and we had a pretty good time.
Nice. That's nice. It's good to have friends.
Yeah.
It is. So now, you've any other experiences before you came home, before you retired?
Well, I actually still got a couple more stations I was at.
Okay.
After I left Attu the first time, I went to Sandy Hook, where I was in charge of building maintenance there, and boat maintenance as well. I helped out with the boat maintenance when I needed to. It was basically standard. It was the same thing. I took care of the housing units, the buildings, and everything like that. So it was
What
pretty
year
much
was
station.
that? What year was that?
That was, let's see, let me just double check just to make sure, because that should be 92 to 96, I think it was. Yeah, 92 to 96. Oh, I was there, right there. Yeah, it was 92 to 96.
So did they have a lot of service people stationed out there as well?
At the time, they had, it was all just the Coast Guard was where we were at. There's the Sandy Hook, the Army base, that's been closed for years. But there was, at that time, we had probably about 75 housing units we were taking care of. So it was all the dependents from the guys that were stationed there. So we dealt with a lot with the dependents.
The buildings are still standing.
No.
No?
Well, all the buildings, all the main buildings that the Coast Guard operate out of were all replaced after Sandy.
Okay.
There's only like one building that I know of that's still standing. It was when I was there, and that was the building that I worked in at the shop. But everything else was pretty much gone. All the housing units, they were totally wiped out, so they didn't even bother to rebuild them. So everybody's dependents now live off base, and so that's all been changed over the time.
Oh, okay.
So that's one less job that the guys there have to do.
So how long did you stay at Sandy Hook?
I was there for 3 years.
Okay. And then after that?
Then I went back to that too for another year. So that's why I did the 2 years there.
And then after that?
Then after that, I ended up in Philadelphia at Marine Safety Office, Philly, which is actually right near on Penn's Landing. And I was basically building maintenance there and boat maintenance. So I did a lot of stuff between maintaining the buildings that we had there and the smaller cutters that we had as well.
So what made you decide to retire?
Well, I had 20 years in, and then after 20 years, I just figured I was only going to be able to do 2 more years as a first class petty officer. And the last time I took the exam to make chief, 100 guys took the exam. I was within the top 25%, but there was only 2 positions in the entire Coast Guard.
Oh,
That people don't realize there's more police in New York City than there are Coast Guard in the entire country.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing. And here's some more pictures we had here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's some of your family,
Yep.
too.
All right.
Okay.
This is a couple of pictures I have here is of my retirement ceremony. I did go back to Sandy Hook for the last 10 months. That's where I retired out of. This one right here is actually the shop personnel that I worked with.
And where are you in this picture, Doug?
I am right there.
Okay.
Right there. No, right there. I'm sorry. I'm looking backwards. That one right there. The big guy.
Okay.
That was me there. This is another part of the ceremony. This is actually the tradition in the Coast Guard is when you retire, you always get something from the newest guy there. The guy that's on this side actually worked for me. He was a fireman. He was a DC fireman.
Okay.
He was our youngest member. He actually presented me with a 1861 Navy cutlass as as a retirement gift.
And what is a cutlass?
A cutlass is a sword used by the naval forces.
Is that in the picture?
Yes, it is. It's actually, I'm holding it.
Oh, I see, yeah. Oh, my.
And the reason they gave that to me, because for some reason they have a habit is you retire from the Coast Guard, you want to go fishing. I wanted nothing to do with fishing. So since I reenact, one of the things I do in the Civil War reenacting is a naval impression. So they bought that for me instead of fishing
Oh,
gear.
that was so nice.
And last one I have is actually a picture of me, my wife, and my daughter.
That's so nice that they were there with you in the
Yes,
ceremony.
actually the whole, yeah, it's an open ceremony for the family.
That's wonderful. So now that you've done, your service had ended and you moved on, what type of work did you wind up doing?
Well, I joined the Carpenters Union out of Milltown is where it originally was. They're now out of Edison. It used to be 1006 local. Now it's 254 Northeast Council of Carpenters. So I do general carpentry work of different types, mostly industrial stuff, warehouses, office buildings, storefronts, and such like that.
Okay, great. And you also mentioned about being a reenactor.
Yes.
So you have some pictures, I think, of that?
Yes,
Sure.
yes, I do. I have a few.
Okay. And there's another one, I think.
Yep,
over
I hit
here,
that one.
too.
All right, this one here is like I say, since I do the Civil War, I portray Union and Confederate infantry as needed, as numbers needed. I also do Cutter Revenue Service, which was the old Coast Guard before 1950.
And I think you have
Right.
your hat here.
I have my hat. This is the hat I would wear in my naval uniform.
And your uniform
And the
is
uniform is right over here. This is a basic uniform that actually stayed in service with the Coast Guard until around 1973,
here. Oh, wow.
when we did away with the Cracker Jacks, is what they refer to them as. These are all, it's all wool, as you can see, it's very heavy, very durable material.
And it even has a scarf.
Yep.
Now, is this an original uniform?
No, these
this
are all
is
reproductions.
reproductions.
Very hard to find originals to start with,
And
and
what-
secondly, I wouldn't. Now, the shoulder
Finger?
patch that it has, basically is, it's got an eagle with the shield, an anchor with a line through it, called a fouled anchor, and then a star above it, which indicates that I represent a senior petty officer on board the ship, which I represent a ship's carpenter,
Very nice.
hence being a damage controlman.
Very nice. Okay.
Now, when I do infantry, I portray my great-great-uncle, David. Now, this one here, picture here is me and my daughter. This is going back a few years because she was only about 10 years old when this was taken. She's 28 now. This was taken down in Cape May, down in Cold Springs Village, one year. So that's one of the impressions. And then, give you a little bit better, is this picture here. Hopefully get a good one right of glare. This one is me in my naval uniform, standing next to an American flag that the regiment carried during the war. A reproduction of the flag that the regiment had carried.
How long have you been doing the reenactments?
I've been doing this for 25 years now.
Oh, a long time.
My
Very
daughter
long.
started when she was 4 years old.
And if she joined you?
She's still joined. She's still doing it, yes.
Wonderful. And how about your medals here?
Okay.
Let's take a look at that.
Okay.
Okay.
As I showed you on the uniform itself, this is just basically, this is what they've also gave me when I retired. It's got all the miniature medals on the one side. It's got the Coast Guard shield that I would have on the hat. These would be the collar devices that I wear going up as my rank, third class, second class, first class. This little pin down here is what you would wear on your garrison cap. What they refer to as a 4.5 or a garrison cap. And then crossed hammer and axe for my damage control. These are all the ribbons together. So there's 15 ribbons. And then my permanent cuttersman pin.
Nice, very nice. Did your daughter have an interest in joining the Coast Guard?
Nope.
No?
She had no, she wanted nothing to do with it.
Not military?
No, she's not. Yeah, she was never a military person. No. I wish she would. It would have been a lot cheaper on my college.
Any advice you can give to young people in regards to the service?
I think it's a good thing. I did, like I say, I did 20 years. I enjoyed it. I got around. I've seen a lot of things. Stuff you'll probably never get a chance to see in civilian life. And you learn a trade. And I think it's very good. And it doesn't hurt you to do it. It won't hurt you. As you say, it runs in my family. Like I say, I had my father. I had an older brother. He was with the Marines during Vietnam. He served there. There was myself. Then I had a nephew who was it was an MP over in Iraq. He was actually, afraid to say, he was killed over there. He was killed in action. He was from Spotswood. He died in 2008.
So sorry.
2008. He's buried in Arlington Cemetery with honors. But I don't, it's like anything, even normal life, you're going to take a chance at anything. But I think it's worthwhile for anybody to do military time. It would not hurt them at all.
Is there anything that you can think of that we haven't covered that you might want to talk about?
In relation to this, no, I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much everything for the Coast Guard life that I
I
was
think
in.
the only thing I can think of is your jacket.
Oh,
Let's
yes.
show your jacket.
me pull
We'd
this
like
back.
people to take a
Okay.
look at that. Now, this was when you were in Alaska.
This was when I was in Alaska.
Let's see. Okay.
Northern Pac, Coast Guard Loran Sea Station chain. As you can, it's hard to really see, but way out here at the point is Attu. We were on the last island. Then you had Point Clarence over here was another one, and then up here is St. Charles, I think it was. But we also had another radio station actually in Russia that we signaled with. We ran a dual signal. So not only is us, was a signal out of Russia.
Oh, wow.
And what was great about this, it was out of the whole time I was there, we operated 99.99% of the time. We only had one downtime, because that's when we had a fire in the transmitter.
Wow. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Well, we thank you so much, Doug, for joining us on the show today. We really do. And thank you very much for your service. It's most appreciated. And I'd like to say, we wish that if anybody is interested in being part of our show, to please come on board and talk with us, because we would love to have you. And thank Doug tremendously for bringing all your information of your whole history of your family and how it relates to all of us and your family service. Thank you so much, everybody. And once again, we'll see you next time, and God bless America.